Hey, y'all, a quick trigger warning, although really isn't a lot of the stuff that we talk about in the conservation news section, at least, triggering. But in my intro this week, I'm going to be talking about the loss of a beloved pet. So just wanted to give you all a heads up. And if that's something that's hard for you, you might want to skip ahead a bit. 7 minutes should do it. Okay, let's get on with the show. Hello, I'm John Rossi, a touring drummer with the love of all things animal. When I'm on the road, I visit as many zoos, aquariums. Hey, wait a minute. What's going on? Hey, what's going on there? Hello? 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 We interrupt your regularly scheduled program to bring you Rossifari Zoo news. News you can use from the world of zoos and conservation. Every week, we bring you breaking news and analysis from around the globe, featuring the animals you love and the people who care for them. And here's your anchorman, John Rossi. Hello, and welcome back to Rossifari Zoo News, your look at everything going on in the world of zoos, aquariums, conservation, and general animal weirdness. So I mentioned there's a trigger warning at the top of this episode here, and I'm just going to get right into it. So this week I said goodbye to Lexi. Now, I've talked about Lexi on the pod a bit before, but on here and on my socials, Paradiddle and Flam, my puppies, tend to get a lot more of the attention just because they are very active and goofy and all kinds of stuff. But Lexi was, without a doubt, my best friend. Lexi was in my life for almost 15 years, which is a long time for a dog. And it stands out to me how amazing it was that she went through so much stuff in my life. From a marriage that didn't work out and was I think fairly hard for everyone involved at times, to the birth of a child that I did not really know what parenthood was going to look like for me, to launching my touring career, to going through a divorce, through going, through all kinds of different stuff. Lexi is the reasons that Zoe swiped right, so that's exciting. But more than that, when I was home, Lexi was home for me. Lexi was it was Lexi's greetings when I got home that made me feel like I was finally off the road and actually home, more than anyone else's. And it was such a privilege to have her in my life. She got to travel with me for many different gigs, got to see a lot more of the country than most dogs do. And a lot of times she would just, as I was recording this podcast, she would just insist on being there. She would often just sit in my lap or on the bed in the room where I record. Sometimes she would hop down on the floor, and if you listened carefully, you could hear a little pitter patter of adorable clicking feet in the background while I recorded. And she was just kind of always there. And I was sitting on the couch the other day right after she passed, and I was working on actually the episode I released on Tuesday, just, editing the episode, doing the thing like you do. And there was this spot that Lexi would always hang out on when I was editing downstairs. It's this little table that we'd put a pillow on, and Lexi would lay on it. And I didn't fully realize how ingrained it was in my body and in my brain to constantly just glance over and see my best friend laying there until she wasn't laying there. And I kept working on that episode, and like every 30 seconds or so, my head would just slightly turn. And, now it was looking at an empty coffee table. And that is, frankly, that's less happy than, looking at an adorable puppy. If there's one story that I could share about Lexi that really stands out to me. I was in this crazy car accident kind of thing. Someday I have to share the details with all of y'all. But my leg was injured, and I was supposed to basically lay on an air mattress in my living room for a couple of weeks. This was many, many years ago. And from the moment I got home from the hospital, which was the night of the accident, I was released that day, shockingly, until I was able to kind of start to redo life at a real normal pace again, Lexi would not leave my side other than to go to the bathroom. She would even not want to run off for food, which led to her sometimes getting snacks or being fed just kind of on me. And she would lick the wound, which might, in retrospect, might not be the most sanitary thing, but hey, whatever. It wasn't like she was like under a bandage or anything. And she just refused to leave my side. And that kind of friendship, that kind of loyalty is just something that is so rare always nowadays. And so I just, I miss it. I miss her. I miss her tremendously. Y'all have heard me talk about Nanny, who passed away before this podcast, and about Poppy, my grandfather, who passed away about a year ago, and about Caleb, Zoe's dog, who was a big part of my life too. But I have to be honest and say that nothing has hit me quite as hard as losing Lexi, because she was there every day, putting in the work, even if the work was just sleeping on my head, which she did, like a lot. And I'm just so grateful to have had that amazing relationship for almost a decade and a half. That's incredible. That's a beautiful thing. So I want to thank y'all for listening to this. And, Lexi, I know that you can't hear this, but just in case, you truly were the goodest girl. You were my little pluker duker, and I love you, and I miss you more than I can say. So thanks for being amazing. All right, let's get to it, y'all. All right, so before we get on to our births and deaths, I'm going to start off with two stories, the first of which is a rather large correction from last week. I suppose in my telling you all about the SeaQuest in Trumbull, Connecticut closing after having some USDA inspections not go their way, I said Sea Life, not SeaQuest. Whoops, that's like really bad. Sea Life Aquariums are AZA accredited. We've had, some people on from like the Arizona one in particular. I've got some great relationships with some other people at other Sea Life aquariums. I'm hoping we can get them on the podcast. And I feel terrible about that mistake. Every once in a while we misspeak as we go here. But in this case, I said the wrong thing. Sea Life, I have been to many of their facilities and have never had an issue with any of them, whereas SeaQuest in Trumbull really did bother me and now is closed. So, take that for what it's worth. But I apologize to my Sea Life friends and thank everyone who pointed it out to me this week. And then before we get to the births and deaths, like I said, we've got a few things this week. So because of the Lexi thing and because I just had to embarrass myself, I wanted to start with some really good news. Although, admittedly, births are good news. But y'all, we did it. This is huge. Just this morning, I'm recording today on Thursday. Actually, I'm basically going to finish recording and then immediately send this out to the world for y'all. But yeah, we did it. You're wondering what it is. Okay, fair. So I had mentioned on both, I think, Zoo News, but also on my socials that there is a stellar sea eagle that is new at the National Aviary in Pittsburgh, and they were having a naming contest. And one of the names, the name that was winning, was Stella. And for reasons, I was very opposed to that name, and it was winning by a lot of votes. So I posted, I messaged certain people, I asked, I begged, I pleaded, and trust me, I know I'm not the only one who is doing this. I'm not taking all the credit. But today, the National Aviary announced the name of their new stellar sea eagle. And it is Aurora, the name that I was asking everyone to vote for. So Rossifari fans have done it again. Rossifarians unite. We have done this in the multiple years of this podcast that I have tried to, frankly, put my finger on the scale for animal names. We've only missed once. And I've done this a lot, y'all. So I want to thank y'all for coming together and helping vote and helping give an animal a name that is good and more meaningful than the kind of bad pun, but not in the way we like bad puns on this podcast, name of Stella. So Aurora it is, and yay us, go team. All right, let's talk birds, y'all. So we've got to start off by talking about Edgar. Edgar has been born, and he is adorable. You don't know who I'm talking about yet, do you? Sorry. Okay, so Edgar is a baby Allen's swamp monkey that has been born at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. Shortly after his birth, Edgar was abandoned by his mom, and keepers stepped in to help. They initially tried to get his grandmother to foster him, but when that didn't work either, the staff committed to round-the-clock work to care for Edgar. In total, more than 30 people have contributed already to raising this little dude. And you can see why they are so passionate about it when you look at his adorkable little face. If you haven't yet, you need to go to @Smithsonian Zoo or Smithsonian's National Zoo on Facebook and find this little goober because he is just adorable. And, I have to say on a personal note, boy, it sure would be cool if I knew a primate keeper at the National Zoo who might be able to introduce me to Edgar at some point. Wink. Anyway, moving on. 24 tentacled snakes have been born at the Central Park Zoo in New York. Now, this is a viviparous species, meaning that they give birth to live young rather than doing the whole snake egg thing that we're used to. I'm really excited about this and love the number 24. Great help to the species. So congrats to everyone at the Central Park Zoo. The Potawatomi Zoo has announced the birth of a greater kudu calf. This is especially exciting because this kudlet is the first ever born at the Potawatomi Zoo. Also, in case you can't tell, I really like saying Potawatomi Zoo. Potawatomi Zoo. Zoo Tampa has announced the birth of Komodo dragons for the first time in the history of that zoo. Komodlets. Or would these be Komodo draglets? I guess they'd be Komodo draglets. Anyway, regardless, there are 6 new dragons, 3 female and 3 male. So that's very exciting. I've actually seen a lot of places lately kind of stepping up their Komodo dragon game. So it's kind of cool to see that there's some new ones out there. And then last but not least in births this week, Brandywine Zoo in Delaware, our good friends there, have officially announced the birth of a baby crowned lemur, a crowned lemlet. Crowned lemurs are not a species that you see in a ton of places, so it's always exciting when there is a new one added to the population. And Brandywine is such a close facility to me, both in terms of mileage and in terms of, loving them and having had them on the pod a couple of times, that I'm just really excited about it. So yay, Brandywine Zoo. And of course, that brings us to our deaths for the week. So we're going to start off with Jack. Jack was a beloved ostrich at the Jacksonville Zoo who passed away recently. He was 25 years old, which is incredible, and his death was a natural death due to age-related issues. The median life expectancy for ostriches is 10 years old. So 25, for those of you not great at math, is a lot larger than that. So, sad to see Jack go, but you could tell just how amazing the care given to Jack at the Jacksonville Zoo was. It's pretty great. This week, we also said goodbye to Nika, the oldest lion at the Oregon Zoo, who has passed away at the age of 16. She apparently had a seizure, and it was bad enough that she was never able to recover from it, which is really sad. 16 years old is the life expectancy of lions in the wild, but they often live much longer in captivity. So this is, just a really sad, unfortunate thing. When a medical condition takes an animal, it's just really tough. So sending condolences to the team at the Oregon Zoo. And then we have one more animal to discuss in this section, and it's a hard hit. Jaffa, the male Maasai giraffe at Roger Williams Park Zoo, has passed away. Now, back in June, Jaffa underwent a procedure to try to fix his chronic hoof issues. The team at Roger Williams Park Zoo teamed up with experts from the Columbus Zoo, the Henry Dorley Zoo in Omaha, Zoo New England, Tufts University, and the Zoo Hoofstock Trim Program, which frankly is something we need to have discussed more on this podcast, but now is not the time. They got together and they worked on this procedure, and it seemed to work out really well. Initially he healed really well, but then unfortunately Jaffa did suffer a setback, and the team started to work on him some more. They tried stem cell therapy and even made custom shoes for his little feet. And sadly, these treatments were still ongoing, and they were still seeing how effective they were when Jaffa actually fell in a way that led to him being unable to stand anymore. And as such, the decision was made to humanely euthanize Jaffa. I know a lot of people at Roger Williams Park Zoo, and their tributes to Jaffa have been overwhelming and very very loving. This was a very hard loss for that team, and it's amazing the effort that went into avoiding this outcome, but in the end it's what happened, and sending all the love and condolences to the team at Roger Williams Park Zoo. And then the last death that we have to talk about this week is of a human, actually. Robert Webster, the curator of birds at Lincoln Park Zoo in Chicago, passed away unexpectedly recently. The birdhouse at the zoo was closed for multiple days to mourn the sudden loss of this incredible aviculturist who was really respected throughout the entire AZA community. He was known for doing incredible work with birds and also for having a really good mind for husbandry. For those reasons, as well as the more human ones, he will be deeply, deeply missed. Moving on from our hellos and goodbyes, some flash flooding happened in New York City this week, with Prospect Park Zoo and Central Park Zoo having some excessive flooding, which led to closures of both zoos. Central Park was closed for a day, and Prospect Park was actually closed for the majority of the week. The most interesting story that came from this was that the sea lion habitat at Central Park Zoo was so flooded that one of the sea lions was actually able to swim out of its habitat and hang out on the grounds of the zoo nearby. Keepers had eyes on it the whole time, and it soon returned to its family with no issue at all. Cute little story. Sea lion goes and explores the zoo. Adorable. Sadly, this doesn't make for a great headline, which is why many publications claimed that a sea lion briefly escaped the zoo, which it did not. Again, it was on zoo grounds, near its exhibit, with keepers keeping an eye on it. Oh, maybe that's why they're called keepers. No, it's not. Anyway, and it just really frustrates me to see the continuation of misinformation being spread because it makes for a good headline. One of my friends who shared this story to their Instagram stories is not really a big zoo person. and she loves animals and stuff. She thought it was cute, but she just shared the misleading headline, and I was like, "That's not what happened." And she was like, "Oh, okay." And I was like, "Crap! I'm that weird guy explaining stuff at the zoo to people, except now I'm not at the zoo." No, I'm kidding. It was fine, and she actually said that she felt bad that she fell for a fake headline, but it's just a reminder that that crap is out there more and more in all areas of the world, and that we need to stay ever vigilant. For instance, I recently heard a story about a guy who claimed that a sea life aquarium closed, and that just wasn't true. So, stay vigilant, friends. Oh, John. Teams from the Los Angeles Zoo, Aquarium of the Pacific, and the Santa Ana Zoo worked together to release around 170 southern mountain yellow-legged frogs into their habitat in Southern California. The frogs are born at the Los Angeles Zoo before being raised at the other two facilities and then being released into the San Gabriel Mountains, which is their habitat. Now, this is a project that started way back in 2007, and in total, they have released over 6,000 of the frogs, which have way too long of a name for me to say again right now, except that saying it that way probably took longer, so I should have just said Southern Mountain Yellow-Legged Frogs. Anyway, back into the wild. So an amazing conservation story with two incredible zoos and an aquarium that is a friend of the pod and that I love very much. Love those stories. And speaking of zoo conservation stories, our friends at the Akron Zoo recently announced that they are helping to save Partula snails by reintroducing them to their native French Polynesian islands. Two keepers from the Akron Zoo recently traveled to Tahiti to release 1,000 snails that were bred and head-started at the zoo. Amazing work by the team there. The Akron Zoo has also announced a new Komodo dragon. Remember what I was just saying? Lots of places have new Komodo dragons. Named Jasper, that is now on exhibit. In a video released on social media, it appears that Jasper might be a little clumsy, but is absolutely adorable. So check him out on their socials or next time you are at the Akron Zoo. This next story blows my mind. I think this is so cool, and apparently it's not really that newsy because I guess it's been happening for a while, but it got announced again, so I'm counting it as news. But the Desert Museum, which is in Arizona, has announced that they have teamed up with the Arizona Game and Fish Department to adopt out hundreds of surrendered desert tortoises every year. These surrendered captive tortoises can't be released back into the wild, both because they might not have the skills to survive and because they could potentially introduce pathogens into native populations of this species. This is the coolest program ever. It's not super easy to properly take care of tortoises. You need to worry about lighting and UVA, UVB, heat, all this stuff. People think turtles and tortoises are very easy pets, and then they end up either dying or having like shell deformities, and it's just not the case. But they are really rewarding pets if you're really willing to put in the time. And the fact that you can adopt a desert tortoise properly through the government and a zoo is this is the coolest program ever. I want a desert tortoise. I love desert tortoises. They are so cute. I always stop and look at them. I want a desert tortoise, y'all. Somebody get me a desert tortoise. Oh, don't just go and get me a desert tortoise. I have fans who might end up mailing me one. So don't do that. But I do want one. This is very cool. If you happen to be in Arizona, you should probably go get yourself a desert tortoise. But again, only if you're willing to take care of it properly. Otherwise, you'll have to surrender it to the Arizona Game and Fish Department, and then it'll go to the Desert Museum, and then I'll talk about it on a future episode of Zoo News while shaming you. All right, so this next story is complicated, and it's really just the start of the story. And I debated putting it in here because it's the start, like I said, of what may or may not be a longer thing, but I owe it to my audience to share everything, so I'm going to share it. There is a petition that has been put up at change.org titled, quote, "Demand the resignation of Tanya Peterson, director of the San Francisco Zoo." While it was started anonymously, I have actually spoken to sources and confirmed that it was started by a group of former and current San Francisco Zoo employees claiming that the current interim director, Tanya Peterson, who has held that title since 2007, not the most interim thing I've ever heard of, is mismanaging the zoo. Claims include paying below poverty wages, cronyism, the creation of fake positions to give to her friends and provide them top pay, and having future plans to raise school group rates to 8 times their current price, as well as to raise all admission rates at the zoo significantly. Now, when I first saw the petition, I figured it was some anti-captivity activism, but the fact that former and current keepers are involved in it does make me wonder about the whole, smoke and fire thing. Now, I want to be super clear here. I am absolutely not reporting that these issues are real or that this petition has merit. I have only been to the San Francisco Zoo once, and I thought it was a marvelous facility. I spent a lot of time talking to some incredible keepers there, and I have nothing but love for that place. I am a firm believer that employees get mad, whether right or not, whether fair or not. Some of those, things that are being claimed, like cronyism and the creation of fake positions, are obviously huge problems. Other ones, like wanting to raise the rate that people have to pay to get in or school groups have to get in, I mean, at the end of the day, they need to make money. I'm not saying that's the way to do it. I'm not supporting those ideas. I am saying that, those are things that happen at other places too, without them trying to get the president removed. So with all of this said, this is a story that I will absolutely be keeping an eye on and will update if there is anything worth saying. But people have claimed that there are these problems going on, that it is coming from former and current keepers, and that those keepers have receipts. So let's keep an eye on this one, y'all. And remember, even if every word of it is true, that in no way takes away from how incredible the facility and staff, outside of maybe a few problematic people, of the San Francisco Zoo are. All right, so last week we talked about Panda Palooza happening at Smithsonian's National Zoo, so I did want to drop in a reminder that the government is currently looking at a potential shutdown. Now, this shutdown has been delayed until mid-November, but should the government close, the National Zoo can only stay open until it runs out of money from the previous year, and the zoo estimates that might be 6 or 7 days at most. Thus, if you are planning to get to the zoo to see the giant pandas one more time, make sure you do so before a government shutdown goes into effect, or Panda Palooza might become Panda Palooza that didn't see the pandas one more time. Or something. All right, let's hit some big manatee news involving multiple zoos. The rescue manatees that have been living at the Columbus and Cincinnati zoos have been returned to Florida to prepare for release back into the wild. And the plane that took them didn't come back empty-handed. Empty-winged? Anyway, there are new, much smaller manatees that are now at these facilities that are here for rehabilitation. I actually got to see the Columbus ones earlier this week, and they are ridiculously adorable. It's easy to forget how small a lot of the manatees are when they show up, because when they get healthy at these zoos and leave, they are not small anymore. So yeah, that was fun. I did not expect that to happen. That was really cool. But as for the returning manatees, they are back at the Manatee Hospital at Zoo Tampa and SeaWorld in Orlando, which is where they started their rehab journey, and they are there to prepare for release back into the wild. So an amazing story involving 4 incredible facilities. And speaking of the number 4, Oof, that was bad. I love bad transitions. The lion cubs at the Buffalo Zoo finally have their names. Those names are Briggs, Asali, Denny, and Saul. 2 were named by guests voting in person, and 2 were named by a very generous donor. Our good friend Bobby Brinks from Lions, Tigers, and Bears has been nominated for San Diego Magazine's Women's Pioneer in the nonprofit category. Now, Bobby is incredible. If you haven't heard her episode from her amazing rescue out in San Diego, you need to go check it out. But yeah, you can find a link in the bio of @LionsTigers_and Bears on Instagram to go vote for Bobby and help her win this really, really much deserved reward. Heading back to the Central Park Zoo for a moment, just, to make sure that no other animals have escaped, he said, rolling his eyes. The Central Park Zoo has announced an event called Zookeeping for Grown-Ups. Now, this is taking place on Saturday, October 14th. You can go, if you are a grown-up, and spend the morning actually helping keepers with their keeping duties. Then after that, you'll get to meet some incredible ambassador animals. Woo! I want more of this stuff. Y'all have heard me say it before, but there are a lot of adult zoo fans out there. Most of y'all listening are adults, and we want to go do the cool stuff too. And just as a friendly reminder, unlike children, we have incomes. Most of us. And frequently disposable income. And, that can be given to zoos if we get to go do cool stuff. Just saying, zoos. Very excited about this. I personally will not be able to attend. This is, coming up in just a little over a week here. But boy, I wish I could. And I'll be keeping an eye on it for future opportunities. The Beardsley Zoo in Connecticut has announced that Changbai, their Amur tiger, has left the zoo, signaling the end of an era for the zoo. However, it's also the start of a new era, as it does represent the start of construction as a brand new state-of-the-art tiger habitat is being built at the zoo. Now, Changbai won't be back, but other tigers will be headed to Connecticut to go to Beardsley Zoo as soon as this new exhibit is built. And it's going to have an expanded habitat that is going to awe guests and give an even better life to the tigers that live there than Changbai had on exhibit. Although Changbai was very loved and very well taken care of at that zoo. So it is sad to see Changbai go. Definitely one of the icons of the zoo. But I can't wait to see what they come up with for tigers in the future here, and then hopefully go and do another episode celebrating the return of the tigers to the zoo. And then last but not least for this section, it's time now, don't you know? Okay, I'm not going to do the whole thing because this is Zoo News, but we have an actual Zoo News poop story.
Poop story!
This week. So a team of researchers from the University of Sheffield believe that naturally occurring viruses found in the poop of endangered animals, known as bacteriophage or phages, could be included in dressings applied to untreatable ulcers on humans in order to treat things like diabetic foot ulcers, which are currently untreatable and currently lead to feet being amputated in humans. The research being done on this issue currently focuses on the Visayan warty pigs, guinea baboons, and lemurs that live at the Yorkshire Wildlife Park. As studies continue and peer review is required, it is possible that other animals from other taxa will be looked at, meaning that other zoos may also get into the study. I love this because it is both scientifically incredible and also really, really gross. And that is your official Zoo News
Poop story!
Stereotypical animal podcast theme song. Here to bring you to conservation news. All right, so we are going to start off with some great news for the wildly endangered Sumatran rhino, a species with an estimated fewer than 80 individuals remaining on the planet. A baby has been born at the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary in Indonesia, raising the managed population there to 10 rhinos. Rhinos that represent the future of this species. As a cool bonus fact, even though we are done with zoo news, the Cincinnati Zoo has been very helpful in many ways when it comes to the Sumatran Rhino Sanctuary. So much so that 6 of the 10 rhinos there have ties to the zoo, where the sire and grandfather of many of the rhinos there happens to have been born at the Cincinnati Zoo. Love this story so much. And actually, last week, we talked about good news for white rhino numbers in Africa, and now we're talking about a new Sumatran rhino. But beyond that, this week, I'm happy to report that the overall population of all rhinos in Africa has increased as well by an impressive 5.2% in 2022, and with the numbers expecting to continue to grow at a similar rate in 2023. Huge news for the rhino population. All right, so that brings us to a couple of less good conservation news stories, and this is one of those stories of a few bad people ruining it for everyone. The San Diego City Council voted this week to close Point La Jolla and parts of Boomer Beach to the public until at least 2030. Why? Well, these are areas that sea lions live on, and I have visited Point La Jolla multiple times. It is one of the few things, along with Phil's Coffee, that can actually get me away from the San Diego Zoo or Birch Aquarium or the San Diego Zoo Safari Park for a small amount of my time that I spend in San Diego. You can go fairly close. Well, I mean, honestly, let's be honest. You can go right up to the sea lions, but of course we don't do that. There are signs posted, and there's a way to go there and coexist with these sea lions in a really incredible way. And it has always been one of my favorite experiences. But unfortunately, people have been harassing the sea lions and even hitting them while they are laying down to get them to sit up for photographs. People suck, y'all. I am really sad about this. I am sad to lose such an amazing experience. Going there every year has brought me such joy. And this sucks. But only for the humans. It sucks for me and for the other good people. I'm actually really happy for the sea lions who are not going to get punched to sit up for a selfie anymore. I hate people sometimes, y'all. And while we're on the bad stories, more than 100 dolphins have been found dead in the Amazon, specifically in Brazil, because water temperatures there have reached a high of 102 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just not a temperature that is sustainable for dolphins or, frankly, a lot of the water-living animals in the Amazon. Climate change is so very real, y'all, and I know I don't need to preach to my audience, but it drives me crazy that people do not accept it. On a happier note, congratulations go out to Dr. Pablo Borboroglu, the 2023 winner of the Indianapolis Prize, the world's top animal conservation award. He is the co-founder of the IUCN's Penguin Specialist Group and founder and president of the Global Penguin Society. Penguins are obviously in very good hands. And congratulations to Dr. Pablo. I'm not going to try and say your last name again on this incredible, prestigious award. And then last but not least for conservation news, something from my personal life. Have you heard of the TreeCard app? It is an app that works with your health app on your phone to track your steps, and for every 10,000 steps that you walk, you can plant a fake tree on a fake island that you own in the app. But then the company in charge of it actually plants a real tree for you in the real world as well. They also have like a wooden credit card that you can use, and a percentage of that goes to the company. And that's actually how they fund the planting of the trees. Now, I don't have the credit card, but both Zoe and I are using the app and have really stepped up our steps, so much so that I think every day we've both planted a real tree in the real world through this app. Now, I've done some research into it, but if anybody wants to come on here and tell me that there's a problem with it, my DMs are open. But I've put in the time, and I do believe it is real. I do believe it is wonderful. And I will tell you, they will bug you occasionally in the app and with emails to donate or to sign up for additional things or whatever. But it's not that much, and it's worth a couple seconds of saying no thanks. Because it helps you get your steps in and you plant actual trees. Every single day, you can be helping with the conservation of the world just by having this app. I highly recommend that y'all download the TreeCard app. Think of this, y'all. We get thousands of downloads every single week. If every one of you listening went and downloaded this and walked your 10,000 steps that you're supposed to walk for your health anyway every day, how many trees would be planted just because of the Rossifari podcast? It's an incredible, incredible thought, and I hope that you will consider joining me on this tree planting journey. In other news, we'll start off other news this week by telling you that a bear has been caught stealing pumpkins in Connecticut. Okay, this isn't really zoo newsworthy at all, except that I've really been enjoying reporting on bears causing chaos lately. And it is a reminder to us that like a bear stealing a pumpkin isn't the biggest deal in the United States, especially in Connecticut, where, most people can afford another pumpkin. But I will say this, it is a nice reminder that human-animal conflict is real in the world. And while it's funny to laugh about it when it's a bear being silly or whatever and nobody really gets hurt, this is the same type of conflict that leads to elephants being killed in Africa, or cheetahs being killed in Africa. Really just a lot of animals being killed in Africa and elsewhere. So human-animal conflict is very real, and sometimes it's kind of fun to look at that and be reminded of that with a fun story like bears stealing pumpkins. All right, so now we have an update on a story from a previous Zoo News episode. Y'all remember when I recently told you about a mink farm where the mink were released in an act of vandalism? And do you remember how I said the mink wouldn't have survival skills and would probably die anyway, but also wreak havoc on the ecosystem while doing so? Well, shockingly, it appears that the mink are dying anyway, but also wreaking havoc on the ecosystem while doing so. So, congrats, quote, animal rights activist person who committed this crime. Nice job. Woo. It must be some kind of prophet or something for being able to predict exactly what was gonna happen there. Shocking. All right, so I'm going to tell you this story, and it's going to be another one of those, the press is annoying things. Just giving you a heads up. So there's a baseball team in Philadelphia. They're called the Phillies. Kind of a big deal. Don't know if you know about that. And they were recently in the headlines, not just for clinching a playoff berth this year, but because, according to the headlines, they denied an emotional support alligator access to the park. And it became this whole thing, and people were talking about it, and people were complaining about how people abuse, emotional support animals and how they're not the same as service animals and blah-de-blue-de-blue. By the way, that's completely accurate and actually is a huge problem. But none of that is what really happened. The person who owns the alligator released a statement saying he never expected to be allowed to take the alligator in because it is an emotional support alligator, but instead he knew some people that worked there who thought that some of the players might be interested in meeting his alligator, who is very cuddly, apparently. I don't know about all that, but yeah. And as such, he brought it to the game in the hopes that he could take it back and, show it to some players. And the Phillies said no. And he said, okay, cool. I get it, because this is an alligator. And so he was fine with that. And he went and saw the game, and everything was fine. The man actually came out to make a point and say that there is a difference between emotional support alligators, emotional support animals in general, and actual service dogs and actual working dogs. He agrees with me and probably all of us that there needs to be that distinction, and that people need to stop abusing it just so that they can have Fluffy come and hang out with them wherever they want. So yeah, this was just another example of the press running with the story and just telling something that isn't true. And the funny thing was, I saw the initial story about the emotional support alligator denied access to a Phillies game in dozens of places. And I saw the story about how it wasn't true, and how the man had come out and said everything was fine, and that emotional support animals need to not get in everywhere and stuff, in one place. So yeah, that will continue to annoy me, probably to my grave, because I think the media and the internet is too far gone at this point. But boy, I sound like a crotchety old man. Hey, whatever. Anyway, and our last story in other news this week. This one's a doozy, y'all. This last week saw the blessing of the animals at St. John the Divine Church in New York City. Now, this is obviously an event in which animals get blessed at said church, hence the name. And while many normal dog and cat type pets showed up for the blessing, there were some other really interesting things, including people who brought their dead pets' ashes to get blessed, and then some really interesting exotics. There were kangaroos. There was a ball python so large that two people had to carry it draped around them to get its get it blessed. And then there was actually, and I have seen video footage of this, a pet binturong that got blessed at this church. I have thoughts, y'all. I have feelings, y'all. But I mean, yeah, a holy binturong. Who knew? We live in a weird world, y'all. Animal holidays. Animal holidays. And that brings us to our animal holidays for the week. October is Bat Appreciation Month, Croctober, Tamara Month, Squirrel Awareness Month, and Adopt a Shelter Dog Month. And don't confuse those last couple ones and adopt a shelter squirrel, because that would be weird. And also, I'm kind of surprised that it's not Bless a Binturong Month, but hey, there you go. Anyway, for your individual holidays for this week, the 6th is Badger Day. The 8th is World Octopus Day, and also launches Earth Science Week and Small Wildcat Week, both of which run to the 14th. And then the 11th is National Fossil Day. And those are your animal holidays for the week. And there you have it, folks. Another episode of Rossifari Zoo News is done. Since I didn't say it at the beginning of the episode because I was fighting tears, friendly reminder that you should make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Also, if you can leave a rating or a review or both wherever you listen, that would be incredible. It helps people find the podcast. Make sure you're following along on Instagram and X or Twitter or whatever, and Threads and Facebook at Rossifari, and at Rossifari Pod on TikTok. The podcast is now on YouTube, all the things. And of course, you can support the pod for as little as $3 a month by going to patreon.com/Rossifari. And I'd like to say thank you to all of my patrons, especially my Red Panda level patrons, Dr. Laura Schenk and Dr. Stephen Williamson. And of course, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who contributed this week. Anya Keene, Colleen Lenahan, Kim Cooley, Carrie Kirkpatrick, Kevin Williams, Jacob Zinn, Amanda Berg, Melissa Reed, Crystal Chapman, Jay Meredith, Emily Rockbuck, Sam Evans, Elizabeth Charles, Kristen Khalil, Allie Malinsky, Kay Malinsky, Dan Cohen, and Amanda Morrill. And the moral, of this story here, I don't know, I'm being crazy now. But I do have a story for y'all, which is we've been talking a lot about the Malinsky sisters, right? Allie and Kay. And I think it's a thing now, where whichever one doesn't get me a story some week is going to get some poop about it. Like, I got to tell you, they both got me a story this week, but Kay got hers in really, really late. You're going to hear it next week if you hear it at all. We got there, but it was close. So Allie almost scored a point over Kay and became the better sister for this week. Almost. We're not there yet, but almost. So, y'all, the competition is on, and the Malinsky sisters really need to keep up in their game, because I've apparently decided to make these poor people who are just trying to help me build my podcast and get some good zoo news stories out there into characters on this podcast. So I don't know if I should say you're welcome or I'm sorry, but we'll be checking in on the Malinskys from time to time to make sure that they don't drop the ball. I'm kidding. Totally kidding. Probably. Anyway, remember, friends, the words newsy credits backwards are Steiderk Yeswen.
The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.
And Central Park Zoo having some excessive floody. Yeah, that's a word.